Hello, I'm Philip Stoughton. I'm at Apex 2020 and I'm joined by Subodh from CyberOptics, actually our neighbors here. Thanks for joining me, Subodh. Always new stuff coming out from you guys, and I know that there's more and more demand for inline solutions, and you've got some technology there. Tell me a bit about what you're doing at the moment in that area.
Sure, so we thank you for the opportunity. We are pretty excited about the Inline CMM, which stands for Coordinate Measuring Machine functionality that we have incorporated in our SQ3000 platform. So basically now you can do not only SPI and AOI, but you can also do Inline CMM at the same time. And basically it means you just don't give a pass-fail report, you actually give all the XYZ dimensions. And many customers, particularly the more demanding customers, want to know the measurements and how they can use those measurements to do their process control. So they're finding quite a bit of value in combining SPI, AOI and CMM in one tool, and that's where we are getting a lot of traction. Yeah. So we're pretty excited about that at this show.
Yeah, and it's a software edition that sits within the within each of those machines, or is it a hardware edition?
Hardware is identical, it's all the software editions. Basically when we are collecting the data, we have the raw images and we are doing the measurements. Now what we are doing is capturing all the summary measurements and keeping that, and then we use the software to do the XYZ measurements.
And when you're using that data, obviously that data is very valuable for traceability, which is one example, but also you're using that data intelligently to influence processes before and after those machines. What kind of modifications or updates are you doing to those machines to improve performance?
So that's a good question. So for instance, like in a MicroLED kind of application where MicroLED dies are being placed on a glass or plastic substrate, they really need to know if the dies are placed accurately, because that is controlling your display resolution and everything. And that's where you really need the CMM functionality to know what the exact dimensions are, because that data gets used to feed back to the placement machine, and they can actually adjust the placement on the fly. So in case if the placement machine is going off, we are actually helping the placement machine in real time to get back on to process right away.
Okay, and we look at those, it's kind of those closed loops between various different machines, but beyond that there's a software architecture required across all inspection and the way the different machines connect to each other. Is that something you're involved in, and is that something that customers are demanding from you now?
I wouldn't say they are demanding, but it is getting there, and we are providing a higher level architecture of all the connectivity tools, and we are part of the various industry forums where data is being freely exchanged back and forth. Customers like to see how the various pieces of data come together at a higher level so that they can look at the overall yield and overall productivity. So definitely things are moving there. But there is no one standard format that has been established for AI, for instance, so far. So different customers are experimenting with different things. And frankly, sometimes the connectivities can create some problems too. And so customers are reluctant to try to connect too much data and try to make too many inferences from that data.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to rely on data for a decision, you've got to absolutely make sure it's right. I know you've got the CFX tape around your booth, so I know you're involved in that. But what about working with other standards? I know SEMI have a new is it an ELS standard specifically for the SMT industry. Are you working with all those different standards?
Absolutely. I would say that more than half of our customers right now that are buying our SMT equipment, AOI, SPI type equipment, are semi customers, so either fabs themselves or OSATs. Yeah. So we are definitely part of all the standards that the semi industry is needing. They actually do a little better job in the semi industry than the SMT industry in tying the different pieces of information together. I guess that comes from their heritage of the front end fab, where they have to do that kind of stuff. So they actually do a good job of connecting and looking at the data. The good part for semi-industry is also the parts are very repetitious. That makes it a little easier to deploy AI tools in semi-industry. In SMT, as you know, we are dealing with everything from an odd capacitor to an inductor to all kinds of parts.
Yeah, there's a big mix, but actually I think it's interesting what you say, because I think as a supplier but also as an industry we can learn from the semiconductor industry, because they did invest a lot of money in connecting their equipment over the years.
Yes, absolutely, they have, and they are spending a lot right now. So there's no doubt semi and SMT industries are merging in the back-end area right now. Many times it's hard to know whether it's a semi application or SMT application these days.
Yeah, and it's important with connectivity and what you do in terms of software that you can apply that to both. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure to chat. We're at the start of the show, so I hope you have a great show, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, and good to see you again.